but I did hear a juicy story in our pre-production meeting about you getting into the space of sports media, where you went and you DM'd a company. It was a radio station.
Yep.
You went and got a job. You're kind of doing, you're doing a little bit of bitch work. You're kind of running stuff. Somebody gets hurt, car accident or something like that. And they're like, we gotta thrust somebody into this. And it ends up being you that goes on the station. And they're like, you were so great that they made you a mainstay on the show. Is there truth and validity to that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth. So it was just the guy had a cold. Car wreck sounds better though.
Yeah.
So a guy got in a car wreck.
I was told car wreck. I was actually told broken leg as well.
I don't know if he made it, honestly. To this day.
He didn't have NyQuil. It was a bad deal. It was a bad deal. I understand.
So I'm working, I'd worked construction down in Columbus, Georgia. I was in a fabric warehouse at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to talk radio. Like I would listen to Colin Cowherd's show every day. He was at ESPN Radio.
He's fantastic.
Oh, he would get me to lunch every day.
Yeah.
Like that's how I got myself to lunch. And then the afternoon, that was when like Rosillo and Scott Van Pelt had a show. It was a really good stretch of radio. So I just listened to it all day, every day. And I'm telling myself, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I'm also telling myself, I've got no way in. I've got no way in. I've got no way in. But I remember Saban had just gotten to Alabama. It was like the second year he was at Bama. He comes to Columbus. He does like a public speaking tour. $45 entry fee. I can't afford it. I borrow money to get a ticket to go see Saban speak. And he talked about process-oriented thinking. He talked a lot about how defining your goals, but then totally setting them aside and just focusing on the process. That's the key to success. And it's not like he was the first person I'd ever heard say that. He's the one who made it click for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there in that warehouse and I'm thinking, he had also talked about doing an inventory of your time. Are you investing time or are you just spending time? Look at your typical day. What period of the day is being spent? You're not getting anything back from that you could repurpose. So I figured out, I was driving in my truck like an hour and a half every day, to and from work, to and from class. So I decided the way I'm going to take back some of my time is I'm going to mute the radio. I'm not going to listen to anything in the car, and I'm just going to simulate sports talk radio. So I just talked to my steering wheel. Hours and hours and hours and hours. I would just simulate, like I would turn on the radio. Cowherd brings a segment in from break, mute it. I take over for him. And I had thousands upon thousands of hours over 2 or 3 years of doing that, to where I begged that radio producer, could you let me come in and observe? Finally, he lets me come in because I'd never seen live production happen before. Mm-hmm. So I sat in that studio like 2 months, and one day, car crash, AKA dude gets sick. 5 minutes before airtime, he has no advance warning. He says, do you just want to hop on air today? It was the middle of college football season in the South. It was an afternoon drive, caller-based talk show. So I hopped on, just killed it. Great synergy, great chemistry. And the dude thought I had been doing it for a long time. Mm-hmm. After the show, he was like, where did you say you've worked before? And I said, well, I've actually never been on air before. However, I kind of do a version of this every day in my truck, like a psychopath. So he never took me off air. And then you fast forward 2 years, and that's when that news station GM hit me up. Mm-hmm. So then I go work local TV, and then I start getting towards the end of a contract. And like, I'm seeing YouTube come of age. I'm seeing Facebook Live as a thing. I know where the industry is going. Right. I see those Berlin Walls coming down. I know that if you got internet, unlike maybe 5 years prior, you could make it. Like, you can make a career for yourself. They wouldn't let me do it because I was on an employment deal at the news station, and you can't be creating your own content. It's a breach of contract. Yeah. So I let my contract run to the last day, and they sit me down, general manager right there, news director right there. And they said, dude, we've been calling your bluff. Like, you've been saying you're going to let your contract run out. We just thought you were BSing us for more money, which we don't have. So I was at $27.5 per year, and I was at $30 per year. And they said, what are you going to do? You're really going to leave? I said, yeah, I'm going to leave. They said, what are you going to do? I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And they just laughed. Not even like a disrespectful laugh, just like, oh, you poor thing. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Right. Don't screw your life up. Yeah. They said, you can't monetize that. How are you going to make money? Because no one was monetizing YouTube at the time. And I said, well, I think the industry is about to change pretty quickly. Like, it's very obvious where viewership trends are going. Ad dollars will follow that. They didn't buy it. So I negotiated to stay with them as a 1099 independent contractor, making like fractions of what I was making. And I was already making nothing. But the trade-off I negotiated was, give me the studio 3 nights a week to do my own show out of. And we agreed on that. So we launched the YouTube channel, and we were doing a college football show. That's it right there. That's like a first version of it. 3 nights a week out of the news station. And it blew up. And in 2 years, CBS called. So we've been here ever since.
No shit.
Yo, that is amazing.
That's an incredible story.
It was a unique way to start doing it. Mm-hmm. Like that microphone's clearly not plugged in. I'm clearly wearing a lav mic. That's clearly just an aesthetic I bought off Amazon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a weird way to do it. But it was the only way I could do it. That's the only way I saw in.
It's so interesting the way you bring up Nick Saban's conversation about the process.
Yep.
And a lot of people hear those conversations all the time about how you should handle your time, put your goals to the side. Like that conversation takes place a lot in a kid's childhood and as a young adult. I feel like something has to happen to you, whether it's borrowing $45 and realizing I have to borrow $45 to go hear this person talk, for it to finally like resonate with somebody. Yep. And I think that's just awesome that people who listen to this show, listen to other shows, they'll hear a bunch of nuggets all the time, but it takes a certain perception and you have to be going through something for it to really like set inside your body.
Dude, something else happened to me. So when I was working in that fabric warehouse, this was all within a 3-month period. Mm-hmm. The whole Saban comes to town thing, like the same 2 or 3 month period, the guy who owned the fabric warehouse, his name was David Rothschild. Ultra wealthy family, had made a fortune in textiles. Columbus is a textile, like an old mill town. So he was dying of cancer. And he had always taken a liking to me. I'm working back in his warehouse. I don't see him that much except when he comes through there like once a day, but he'd always taken a liking to me. He would always catch up with me. I had not finished college at that point, and he would like nicely but very forcefully tell me, you're screwing your life up. Like you've got ability. He saw way more in me than I saw in myself. And so he promised me, like, I'm going to die. Like, I am not going to see this through, but I will pay for your school if you'll get back in school. And like simultaneous to that, the director of the communication department at Columbus State University is just hammering me via email. She doesn't know, like, she's not related to me. She doesn't owe me that, mm-hmm. but she's hitting me up saying, get back in school. Like, I'll get you back in school. We're going to have a radio and TV program over here. You could do all the reps that you need over here. And so all that stuff happens over a 3-month period, and you realize like you've got to be a total and complete idiot not to see that there is something / someone mm-hmm. trying to kick you in the right direction. And so that all like, it's over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's all a confluence of events. And I always heard people say right place, right time. I always question that. Like I changed my thinking because of all this. I changed my thinking to where being in the right place is where you want to be so that eventually the right time finds you. I changed my thinking because of like that. It's just like I changed my thinking on hearing Saban say stuff like that. I used to hear it, and I thought those statements were a dime a dozen. That's like fortune cookie logic.
Right.
Looks good on a bumper sticker, but it's coach speak. It's mm-hmm. cliches. It's just people going to motivational speaking seminars near the airport and someone fooled them into buying a ticket. No, man, that stuff works. It's just hardly anyone applies it.
Yeah.
If you apply it, it works for everybody. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter if you want to get in this or you want to go like start a new insurance company and make a fortune over there. Like if that's what you're called to do, you can do it. It's just not going to happen overnight. And it's a good thing it doesn't happen overnight, or everyone would do it.
Yeah. When all this is happening around you, what do you feel like when you look back on it? What do you feel like you weren't seeing in yourself?
I feel like the thing I appreciate the most looking back on it, because I journaled a lot through this period. I'd never done that before, but I knew what I'm going through now. Like I got evicted from my apartment. It was not a great time. It turns out good, but it's not a good time. And I realized one way or the other, I'm going to want a record of this. So like I journaled a lot of it, and I look back on it now. And the one thing I kept saying is, I got no clue how this is going to turn out. I got no clue how I'm going to make this bill the next month. I got no clue here, no clue there, but like, I know what I'm doing is worthwhile. And so I know if I'm right about this, what I'm experiencing is going to be so valuable for so many people. That's why I don't hesitate in telling the story a whole lot. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not bragging. You don't brag about getting evicted or anything or being broke, but you brag that, there are kids who grow up dirt poor and they got like that caged animal syndrome their whole life. There are kids who grow up rich and it doesn't matter how many mistakes they make because they'll always be set for life. There is like an ocean of tweeners out there. I was one of them. I was lower middle class, but like I was not worrying about where my next meal was going to come from as a kid. But I also wasn't set for life as a kid. And so you get out of high school and you don't know what you want to do. And then you're 20, then you're 22, then you're 24. You still really haven't made anything of yourself. You know you've got potential. You know you got talent. We all do. But you're just like floating. You're just pissing away time. You're pissing away years of your life. And so like I didn't really even start having that click till I'm like 30 years old. And I realized if I make something of myself, imagine how this plays to an audience of 22-year-olds Because I know forever there will be tweeners in life who are sitting out there and they just want something to light a fire under them. Well, what better than someone who can say, yeah, I was right there where you were. Like if you're broke, you got no other option than to work, or you're going to die. Like you're not going anywhere. If you're rich, whatever. But if you're a tweener, and that's like a huge population of the United States of America's youth at any given point, no one's really feeling sorry for you, but no one's handing you a whole lot either. That I told myself even at the time, that's who I want to speak to one day. If I ever make it, that's who I want to speak to.
I love that. When what was going through your mind when CBS was starting to get on your tail for, launching? You had done your show on YouTube for 2 years, then you get picked up by CBS. What was the feeling like in your body and your mind when those phone calls were starting to happen?
It's a little bit of, so it's validation. I mean, it's validation, number one, that someone noticed. It's validation that they were going to pay me $70,000 a year, because that's triple, maybe even quadruple what I was making at that point. I was making nothing at that point. Actually, YouTube has started to do okay, but still, like, there's a thing, like when you play your first down in the NFL, you made it as a pro football player. They'll never be able to take it away from you. It doesn't matter if you get cut the next day, you played in the NFL. The first day someone pays you, a company pays you to talk about sports on air, is a very surreal moment. Even if they're just paying you $5, it's a surreal moment because everybody in your life wants to do it. Like everyone dreams of holding one of those like big network microphones and like you're actually getting paid. You're on national TV. Yeah. So there was that piece. But then also there's, all right, now it's time to go to work and it's time to shake the tree. Like we're going to find out really how well the root system is taken, because you can't screw up. You're going to screw up, but you're thinking this is a tightrope walk. You've been walking a tightrope 5 feet off the ground. You're going to be 500 feet off the ground now. And a lot more people are going to see you, and you're going to be exposed in every way imaginable. There's going to be a lot of unfamiliar technical jargon. There's going to be, a lot thinner air. You're going to rub elbows with a lot of people you grew up watching as a kid, and you better not have stars in your eyes. Like you better work with them and talk to them on their level. Or if you're really what you think you are, you better be able to walk in that setting and own the room. Like, how do you walk in there? I grew up watching these guys and listening to these guys, but do you have the presence of mind to set that aside at the door and walk in there and own your craft so thoroughly that when you look at them, like you're getting respect back from them? Because like as a man, when you do and don't have someone's respect. And so that's kind of some of the stuff I was thinking about. And then also thinking, I think I'm prepared for this, but I know there's so much I'm unprepared for. Let's go do it anyway. Then you start doing it. Then COVID happens 2 months later. Yeah, that whole year, you were talking about it on your side. Imagine on my side, I moved to Nashville. You remember the tornado came through?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hit our building. That's the first 2 months I'm here. COVID happens shortly thereafter. Like later that month is really when you start shutting down. And I always say this and it sounds so bad, so I have to like really carefully preface it. COVID was terrible for a lot of people. And a lot of people lost family members. Like it was a real serious deal. Professionally speaking, it was the biggest blessing I could ever have that it happened when it happened. Because I came here and then things shut down, and Shannon Terry, who was running 24/7 Sports, but that had been acquired by CBS. So like I'm working for him, I'm working out of his building. He said, I'm going to get you emergency access to this building. No one's going to be here for I don't know how long. No one's going to bother you. Just do what you think you need to do. And so we got like 6 months of doing the show our way on CBS's platforms with no corporate interference. And by the time people slowly started to come back, and by the time like the executive types started seeing it, it was already making money. It had already scaled. Yeah. So they never even had time to, I'm not saying they would have, but they never had time or a reason to step in and try to change this or turn that knob or, course correct at 20 degrees. It was already proven. By the time COVID had ended, it was already proven. So we were good to go at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be a good feeling to be like, all right, I get to kind of just run with this thing. No one's expecting anything to work out anyway because we're in the middle of like COVID. And then by the time it gets there, it's like, yeah, there's nothing to critique. Because if you're in there with everybody else, there's a chance that executives are going to bring you into a room and be like, hey, maybe change this, maybe do that. Now you're second guessing yourself, but it's your creative process. So you don't want that to whole get messed up. So there's all these things that different variables to mess you up in that process.
Yeah.
So that's a massive win.
Well, think about this. So you're in the exact same seat that I'm about to talk about. What you're doing right now, you're creating jobs for untold hundreds to thousands of people down the road because companies watch what you're doing and you've massively scaled a product. You're doing it totally your way, like it's authentically yours. Everything's yours. So you've got pop, you got proof of performance. There's no questioning whether this works. There will be companies, there will be private equity firms. There'll be huge money that gets redirected towards trying to duplicate what you're doing and giving people jobs and putting them behind microphones they otherwise wouldn't have been behind. Now, at that point, they either sink or swim on their own, but you created an opportunity for someone. I was thinking that, like I still think that today, but I was thinking that, okay, CBS has kind of made me the test pilot program. Like big networks 5 years ago, they're not really in the business of going and finding some guy on YouTube and putting him in their chair. They're in the business of, we're going to find someone who's already proven, or we're going to take former players, coaches. Like it's a really tried and true formula. We've done this for 100 years. So I get my shot. I'm thinking, yeah, this is big for me, but there are like 100, 200, 500 other guys out there who may or may not ever get a life-changing opportunity based on whether I make this work or not. Mm-hmm. And that was a really huge deal. Like that's part of legacy. That's part of something that extends well beyond yourself. And I think about that stuff every day.